cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
It is Monday, the 13th day of August, 2012. I am your host, Alex Jones. And get ready, because it is all over the news that the banks are preparing for total collapse. Troops are rolling around the streets everywhere, acclimating the public. Homeland Security is involved in every city and county and state activity. Power grabbing. Things are really getting crazy, and the Washington Times is reporting on what we reported on last week. The Civil War of 2016, the Pentagon training to take on the Tea Party. Al-Qaeda is not the threat. The American people are the enemy, because foreign bankers have hijacked the country, and they're trying to turn the military and police into globalist collaborators similar to the Vichy French. And tyranny is the norm worldwide. It's happening now. In fact, coming up, Asia Times, Al-Qaeda flags fly over rebel-held Syria. Boom. Just like Libya. More visible U.S. role expected in Syria in coming weeks, Turkey says. Here come the peace bombs from the peace president. Also, Israeli news reporting that the president is close to saying they will join an Israeli attack. That's in the U.S. Israel tests SMS missiles. Alerts as Iran chatter grows. AFP. Syrian video said to show rebels throwing bodies off roof. Mumbai on alert after weekend riot. 2 Syrian journalists killed in Damascus. It just goes on and on. We're going to be breaking all of that down. Darrell Issa to sue Eric Holder today. That's on a roll call. Here's the big news, because it's exactly what I was already going to be covering today, and now here it is. First, they bought 250 million hollow point bullets, then 750 million. So now we're up to, well, the new announcement, first it was 250 million, then 450 million, and now 750 million. So if you do the math on that, what's 750 million plus 250 million plus 450 million? Talking about 1,400 million? I mean, what is that, 3 or 4 bullets for every person in the United States? We're 312 million or something? I tell you, I mean, these numbers of bullets are getting so big, I can't even do the math now. Armored pillboxes, checkpoints everywhere, brainwashed police and military being told, get ready for war with the American people. Drones being launched everywhere, total gear up, and the military admitting in all these manuals, training for gun confiscation, training for re-education camps. Man, I'm telling you, the globalists are the types that'll nuke 4 or 5 cities and say that the Patriots did it. Or they're the types that'll release a bioweapon and just wait for everybody to dig out after, you know, tens of millions die. Yeah, so DHS won't explain its purchase of 450 million rounds of 40 cal. That's their standard sidearm. They're arming every agency you can imagine. So let's be clear. 250 million rounds last year. 450 million they bought a few months ago. And now 750 million. How many is that? That's 1,400 million. So that's... what is that, 1.4 billion? 1.4 billion rounds of ammo for the American people. I mean, these are just lawless crooks. You got Janet Napolitano and a bunch of jackbooted weirdo women dominating the men, screaming at them, putting their stuff in the bathroom over and over again. I mean, we're in the hands of lunatics. You know what tyranny is? It's when lunatics take over. We're going to be breaking it all down on the other side. Stay with us. My friends, fellow liberty lovers of every race, color, creed, and religion worldwide, thank you so much for joining us on this Monday edition, the 13th day of August 2012. We are about to launch into the incredible news, and believe me, there is a lot of it. The federal government and the governments of Europe are openly under the control of a banking mafia cartel that brags in hundreds of publications per month and on television that they have conquered us. They have now entered into an acclamation phase of flaunting it, as criminals like to do, in everyone's face. So they've now gone to the criminal flaunting stage, which criminals always do. They always tell on themselves. They always brag ad nauseum. It is part of the screwed up mindset of these people throughout history. Humans only live on average about 75 years. We never seem to learn from the past. We go through these cycles over and over again. But here is the news. Last year, 250 million rounds of hollow point 40. That's been the main sidearm for more than a decade of all the federal forces. That means globalist collaborators. Not saying everybody in the federal government's evil, but you are run by foreign banks now, so you are collaborators. Sure, there were Vichy French that worked with Hitler who didn't like him, did it out of cowardice, did it out of careerism. It doesn't matter. You are helping occupiers of this country who are very nasty. We are occupied. You are collaborators. Let's just get that straight. You do work for criminals. Mentally ill criminals. I mean, look at Fast and Furious. Look at the head of Homeland Security in New York about Janet Napolitano and her gal pals ruling everyone and doing psychopathic stuff I can't even mention on air. Just absolutely mentally ill. Well, of course they're mentally ill. That's what these type of terrorists are like. And if we won't call them what they are, it's over. Tyranny in history is around 99+% of the time. There have been less than 10 times in world history, most historians agree, about 7 or 8, you can debate it, where you've had a free society to some extent, out of thousands of different civilizations that have come and gone. People say thousands. Yeah, there's probably been 25 different permutations in the last 3,000 years in what is Rome and Italy today. There have been hundreds of permutations in what are the Greek islands. There have been hundreds of permutations in what is Central Asia and Iran. Hundreds of different permutations in Mesoamerica. And the norm is vicious, aggressive ruling classes that are like cancer. They're programmed to take it all. They're programmed to take over the body politic. And they're programmed to exercise power to the point of the reason when Cortez showed up with less than 200 men on horseback, the reason they could fight tens of thousands of the Mesoamericans and Montezuma was because disease wiped a lot of them out. But more importantly, they had already, in some cases, on special holidays, demanded that in some cases 10% of the population be killed. And they would kill tens of thousands a day sometimes. And so they would kill the strongest on those holidays. They would kill the winners of the different sporting events. They had their own Olympics. And you would fight to be able to be killed. People were so brainwashed, they wanted to be killed. That's mind control just with culture. And it's the same thing. I've studied history. Let me tell you something. The people we've got running things are the most crazy, wicked, twisted devils I've ever seen. The globalist plan, that's public, by the way, is so horrific that one cannot even be told about it. One has to research it and read their own writings. It is so vicious. Now, that said, here's the deal. And everybody, police, military, all of you, the general public, radio talk show hosts, people that write in the news, all of you have to decide what side you're on. No one is covering this but a few newspapers, alternative media. The government documents are all public. The Drudge Report, Infowars.com. PrisonPlanet.com, DrudgeReport.com, things like that. The mainline talk show hosts are not covering it, even though it's all public. Army documents that they admit are theirs for re-education camps, for collapse of society, for total gun confiscation, for taking over local police departments. And they're going operational is the issue. Massive funding, massive buildup. People say, oh, well, they had this on the books in the 1980s with Rex 84. Well, yeah, they had it in Eisenhower's time, and that's why he warned the military-industrial complex and killed the program early in '61, right before he left office. So this has been a long-term plan. And in every case in history, from Rome to Nigeria or Mexico today, you worry about the military taking over. That is criminal interests using the military to take over. That's always the big threat to a sovereign or free society. That's why, again, in ancient Rome, you couldn't bring the military into Italy. It was really a province of the Roman city-state. It wasn't even a country. You couldn't bring them out of Austria or out of areas north of there, what's Switzerland today. You couldn't bring the military in. Why? Because the top general with the military would just take over. They'd seen that in every other country that they dealt with. So this is what we're dealing with now. Foreign banks have gotten all the major regulatory positions. Most of the people in Congress are their agents. They've gotten federal and globalized training of the police and military, and they are the #1 U.S. military action in the world, and gear up, dwarfing pretty much all the other operations combined, is a giant, sustained, covert buildup for absolute war with the American people that the system plans to start. And no matter what it takes, you turn your guns in, they'll start grabbing your kids. It is meant to elicit a response. The entire Homeland Security system was set up in the beginning to be for the American people and to dissolve the republic. Homeland Security is Homeland Insecurity. It's the Department of Homeland Destruction. It is the Department of Homeland Takeover. And this is what we're dealing with now. So let me just cover some of the news here that's got me having to catch my breath. The so-called federal government, openly run by foreign banks, got 250 million rounds of hollow point 40 caliber general issue ammo, just an off-the-chart giant order. Then, a few months ago, they ordered 450 million rounds. We have United Press International, Associated Press on this. Paul Watson's got a big article breaking the whole thing down. Today, they've announced the order for 750 million more rounds of ammo. That is 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion. What is that? There's 312 million people in the U.S., so what is that, 4 bullets for each person? More than 4 bullets for every man, woman, and child in this country. I looked at pass orders. The feds would order 500,000 rounds of ammo at a time for DHS. I mean, how many of them are really shooting their guns or even practicing? This is a seismic digging in build-up level. This is what you order if you plan to make things go road warrior and fully collapse into armored government fortress mode. While the rest of us run around out here and things collapse. And I'm telling you, that's one of the main plans they've got, is just turn things off. Paul Joseph Watson, this article should be red linked, but it's the 4th story down on Infowars.com. DHS to purchase another 750 million rounds of ammo. Second massive ammunition buy this year. Fuels fears of civil unrest. Gee, you think when they're buying hundreds of armored mobile pillboxes for the highways, armored checkpoint facilities, giant black armored vehicles being delivered to police departments with Homeland Security on the side, with gun turrets on the top, gunboats for the lakes and rivers with big twin machine gun mounts on the top. Your money, 30,000 drones, arming police drones, federal training, military doing checkpoints everywhere, Marines doing DWI checkpoints in the middle of major cities. All of this to acclimate you, training the entire military for riot control. Reuters reporting big banks have been told to prepare for collapse, during a federal collapse, for them to not collapse. Exclusive, U.S. banks told to make plans for preventing collapse. It wasn't exclusive. That came out 2 years ago. But the point is that's getting ready for collapse. And I've got big stacks of news on that front. And Ron Paul has warned of, during this engineered collapse, the fact that they're going to try to bring in pure fascism. They've got 100 million people totally on welfare that don't know how to tie their shoelaces, who will do whatever they're told. And if the welfare checks don't ever arrive, major cities will go up in flame and looting. It will start. They're laying off in many police departments more than 60% of the police, keeping the small portion just to write tickets and raise revenue. No amount of money will fix this. We've been signed on to 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives. This has all been engineered. I told you this 14 years ago. It's happening now. Now, I don't know if the collapse is going to be in late October, early November, like the police and military are being told, but they are being told, get ready for the big event then. That may not happen. They do this a lot to get everybody in gear and to follow orders. But the point is, every economist I talk to says there's no way out of this but riding off the derivatives, and that's not happening because that's how the bankers hold us hostage. It's not our debt. 1.5 quadrillion, our debt is 1 trill. That's what we've been suckered into. 15 trillion ain't 1.5 quadrille. 644 trill, they say, is our debt. JP Morgan Chase's $92 trillion in derivatives is not my problem. So I want to tell the police something here. They want to get rid of you, just like the globalists staged terror attacks to get Sunnis and Shiites killing each other in Iraq. That's how they've got us divided up. We're really all Americans. And I know it's macho and it's kind of sexy to have a war with the American people and arrest people. Some of the cops have been hired that are thugs, like the idea. Most of you are not evil, and you understand that you are going to be wiped out if this happens. And so will a lot of patriots. It's going to be bad. Today, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern, we are here live. I have been to the urban warfare drills. I have shot video of it. I have shown you real military checkpoints on highways from Alabama to Tennessee to California to Texas. The Secretary of the Army is announcing they want to put a brigade in every major city and smaller detachments in small towns. By any other name, is still the same thing. This is a martial law takeover of America, not to respond to a hurricane or something like that, which they take your guns in illegally. But just to make sure that this criminal takeover can be completed, because if they don't, they are going to be able to basically shut down the people. They just turned on a giant weed whacker right outside my window of the studio. This is a soundproof studio except for right there at that one window. And it just distracted me. Normally it's pretty hard to distract me, but it just turned on right there in my ear at that point. Just go ask the guy to go do it later, or tell him we don't need it cut. All right, don't be mean to him. Anyway, I mean, he's been going for like 20 minutes. He just turned it back on. It really distracted me. We just need to soundproof that and shut that completely down, that one little window. All right, that's enough. Side issue. The import of what we're covering here cannot be underestimated. The globalists are going to end up going to prison if they do not basically totally take over society. That's what's happening here. And they are at the point of return. They are committed. And those of you that serve the evil are not going to advance yourselves in the mid and long term. In the short term, you may advance yourselves, but this is all coming to an end. The globalist plan has scientifically packaged collapse as a policy of government and statecraft, where they collapse society into warfare and sectarian violence and poverty as a mode of control. Now, we have a special guest coming up, a whistleblower, later in the broadcast. I have a lot of other news I want to get to, but I want to open the phones up for current active duty military that are in urban warfare drills against the American people and police. Because the admissions of urban warfare expanding, the admissions of troops deploying all over the country, the admissions of re-education camps, the admissions of gun confiscation training by the U.S. military for the United States, all these manuals are now public on Army websites. They're not even hiding it, meaning they're getting ready to go operational. The massive buildup of 1.4 billion rounds, 1.4 billion rounds of ammo, 750 mil just ordered. Checkpoints all over the place, television, all the big movies acclimating you for martial law. This is for the economic collapse. And I see comments on our YouTube channel. I see comments out there saying, Alex, yeah, things are collapsing. We've got to do this. It was collapsed by design. I said this 14 years ago. Been on air 17. We saw this coming a long time ago. They've done this in third world countries over and over again. They'll take the wealthiest country in Latin America that was as wealthy as the U.S. per capita and destroy it in a matter of months, like Argentina in 2000. Folks, you better look this up. Look what they've done to Europe. And they keep posing as the saviors, but they say they're going to use global crises to bring in a one-world government. We are in so much trouble, I am begging you to speak out. Because if we don't speak out, if other talk show hosts who know this stuff is true, but decide to kind of play along with the system out of fear, and writers, and people working for the big networks, and all of you, I've talked to a lot of you privately, and you know this is real, but you're scared. If you don't start speaking out and saying no now, if we don't really get a viral transmission of this information, a buzz going against what's happening, the globalists are going to go ahead and pull the trigger on this. They want to start a civil war. I'm asking the police out there. They've got you all hyped up and ready for war. The armored vehicles, the drones, the body armor, the founding fathers are bad. Gun owners and veterans are bad. These are the bad guys. These are the people that ship guns to Mexico. Maybe they'll ship some of the 1.4 billion rounds of ammo down there to the drug gangs. These are weirdos that run bizarre lesbian cults over Homeland Security. I mean, these are very, very strange people, these globalists. I mean, they just want power. They want to screw stuff up. They like burning cities in black uniforms and helicopters and explosions and all of this, okay? I've studied the psychology of these people throughout history. I'm not just singling out the lesbians out there. I'm saying this group, all these weird, aberrant sex cults and things. This is what happened in Rome and Nazi Germany. It's happening here. So I want to hear from police. Is there anything you won't go along with? What is your line in the sand? 800-259-9231. For police and military only. We do this every few weeks. 800-259-9231. Gee, what do you think armored pillboxes and checkpoint systems and 1.4 billion rounds of ammo are for? The Army's told us they're getting ready for full occupation and to start arresting people that don't go along with the criminal takeover. We're so good in this country for so long that we have no immunity, basically, to tyranny. We haven't been through it yet. Americans aren't very well traveled. On average, we're very naive. The media acts like everything is happy. Everything is designed at kind of a childlike level so that everybody is in an arrested development area. We've been trained to worship government and worship tyranny. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. And you've got all these preparations for collapse, which is by design. You've got the military deploying all over the country. You've got demonization in the media and Homeland Security saying white males are the terrorists and are going to attack. And it's because they're going to basically order the military and police to start a civil war in this country. And you are designed to be absolutely decimated by this. It's all a big laboratory. They've learned how to do it all over the Middle East, all over Central Asia, and the globalists admit this. The last few months, all these Army manuals that the Army's put out themselves on re-education camps, mass arrest, gun confiscation, those aren't just words I'm saying. Just type in Army manual covers gun confiscation inside U.S., and it says inside the U.S. they're training to cordon cities and take our guns, just like Katrina. The government has been hijacked. When a plane gets hijacked, a lot of times the hijacker will even put on the captain's uniform. Are you supposed to then do whatever they say because we've all got collective Stockholm syndrome and we're just going to, well, that's the captain. The globalists have taken this country over. And this is an illegitimate government. And if you think Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan are going to save you, I got news for you. It looks like the system's getting ready to put them in so that all the police state gains Obama has gotten, everybody will forget about it and suddenly support it if it's good old Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, who both supported the banker bailout, are in there. And again, this is way bigger than Obama. This is a takedown. This is global government being announced. I mean, look at the other news here. Darrell Issa to sue Eric Holder Monday. That's today. That's on a roll call. For continuing to cover up. Well, we already know what Fast and Furious was. It was drug trafficking as well. That's come out in federal court. The people running our government run the drugs. All the big banks have been caught running the drugs, not just laundering the money, owning and leasing the aircraft. Of course it comes out the Nielsen ratings and polls are fake. Of course it's coming out all this is lies. Of course the unemployment's much higher. The corruption comes to a head like a pustule. Once they get away with all this, why not get away with everything? I want to talk to police and military, 800-25-99231. Folks, this isn't, I'm going to say it again. I wake up in the middle of the night sweating over this. I was talking to Mike Adams for the show today, and he's like, man, it's all coming true. Man, we're not happy that we've been proven right. This is not fun. I know tyranny when I see it. And hundreds, well, now they're announcing the next order is going to be thousands of armored checkpoints where they electronically block the road at checkpoints and have people with machine guns. I mean, folks, this is Fallujah. The face scanning, all of it, MIT admits, is the model of Fallujah. They admitted that was a model for U.S. cities. They're now announcing Tripwire, which I already told you about years ago, where they're listening to your cell phone, face scanning you, tracking by satellite your heat resonance from the top of your body, your head and shoulders, all the cameras inside businesses, getting wired into it by a criminal government. It's all illegal. All of this is illegal, but they just do it. I mean, look at this. I told you about this a year ago. Told you about it 10 years ago. Told you about what was going on with our guest there at Pervert Valley. Jerry Sandusky shared boys he molested with other high-profile pedophiles linked to Penn State as part of sex ring. And it goes on here in the Daily Mail that the feds are looking into this. You got to cover it up. Because let me tell you, DynCorp and Halliburton got caught running tens of thousands of little kids. It came out in Congress, and Rumsfeld said, well, there's nothing we can do about that. They don't even get a fine. You see, the evil, ladies and gentlemen, is, I mean, who do you think's willing to take our guns and put fluoride in the water they know, I mean, Harvard admits gives you bone cancer and brain damages you. These are perverts. These are sickos. A lot of them are pedophiles, but they're pedophiles because it's about hurting children. It's like whatever there is evil and bad, they want to do it. A normal person never gets tired of going bass fishing, deep sea fishing, never gets tired of hiking, never gets tired of hanging out with their family, never gets tired of cheese enchiladas. Just normal people or just want normal, go sit out by the beach, whatever. These people are looking around thinking what they can do bad and bragging about it, too, because they get excited doing bad stuff. I've studied their criminology. Look at this. And then here's Washington Post. The head of it, Graham Spanner's gig as federal worker is a mystery. And it says the head of the university, who was found to have covered up and knew what was happening, is now in a top secret agency so secretive no one is allowed to know what it is. Why do you think? They're like, come on up, we're going to protect you. We're going to burn some underlings, come on up. Of course they were selling the kids to the donors. I'm going to say it again. If you're raping children at high noon in the public showers there at the field house, at a major university, I mean, that'd be like raping a child in the middle of the street. Okay, it's a pervert command base. And Senator John DeCamp said it on my show more than 10 years ago, and I shut him down because I'd never heard of that, and it had never been in the news. It was original info. Because he dug into it at the Republican National Committee. He was hired as a Republican. He didn't believe it, to go out and disprove it, and found it was true. And the police officer, who was a retired police officer, a detective, his plane was blown up to shut it down. Okay? That's who runs things. Look at Janet Napolitano and what the head of New York Homeland Security says. He's got a bunch of witnesses. They do. I can't even say it on air. It's basically stuff along these lines. They're perverts, folks. These are crazy people. Can you imagine these women calling in senior Justice Department and FBI agents, I mean, the heads of entire cities, and saying, you will service me right now, you piece of trash? And again, these women don't even like men. It's a domination thing. All right, I'm done talking about it. Let's just go to your phone calls. We got bad people in charge. They work for foreign banks. They've been hiring all these defrocked priests and people to run TSA in Philadelphia. The head TSA minion on the floor is a defrocked priest, reportedly, that raped a bunch of little girls. Of course, this is what they're doing. They're training you to put their hands on you. They're breaking us. And they hate the military and police, and they're going to march you against the American people. And they're going to stage massacres and things like that to make us look bad. It's going to be bad. This is the takeover. This is how I'm going to go to the police officers. Mark in Washington, who's a police officer, will go to him in a minute. Dan, who's a police officer in PA. Scott in PA, who's a sheriff. Ex-Marine with info from active duty. Fernando, who's Army. We're going to get to all of it. I haven't backed our guests back. But I want to play this first. Do we have the Red Dawn, the new trailer, please? I learned about this 2 years ago from Charlie Sheen. He's in the original Red Dawn. And it was going to come out like a year and a half ago, but it said the Chinese invaded the U.S. through Latin America, which is a lot more plausible than North Korea. They can't even tie their shoelaces because they're actually a communist state. It's not leeching off a free state like the United States, like China is. And plus, they got hardworking folks in China. They made them go in and reshoot a bunch of it and digitally change it to where North Korea invades with Latin America. And in it, the kids fight back against it. Folks, that's not how this is going to work. The takeover happened through banking and through regulatory agencies, and they set up a national security system and a continuity of government system to replace the legitimate government. Then they blackmail the vestigial Congress. That's where we've gotten. I mean, the chair is against the wall. John does have a long mustache. And if you're out there on or behind enemy lines, you know, this one's for you, America. We are occupied. They're getting ready to shut things down. They just gave us notice they're going to shut down our YouTube channel today. Because they now say my voice is copyrighted, and they're preparing to move to ban my voice on YouTube. I'm not kidding. I shot a video and showed the 8th case of this happening. They removed the copyright claim on my voice, but put a strike on our channel and said we may be completely banned. Now, there it is on screen. I mean, folks, it's all coming down. We're going to go to your phone calls here in a moment, but here's the new trailer for Red Dawn. Folks, the Red Dawn is going to be psych warfare, getting us to kill each other as Americans. Then the foreign troops come in, and that's public. This is all public now. But they count on you being ignorant and just say, oh, I heard a rumor. No, it's not a rumor. And again, you have to stop the takeover. They're engineering it. It's not, oh, we got to have troops on the streets because of the collapse. The collapse is designed. Only exposing this can back them off. But right now, they're going forward with it. Right now, all the signs are green lights. We can back them off together. I also suggest you pray. And get out of your 501c3 Romans 13 churches that say worshiping tyranny is what the Bible says when the whole Bible's against that. Let's go ahead and play this Red Dawn clip and then straight to your calls.
You're in the Air Force, right?
Marines, actually.
How long are you here for?
A few weeks.
30 seconds left. Just get us in field goal range.
22!
The blackout may run along the entire northwest corridor.
That's exactly how they'll do it. The globalists will do that and pose as the saviors.
What's going on?
And won't roll in as a foreign military. They plan to destroy our military by having them engage us. By the way, the military will be completely destroyed.
You take care of your brother, you hear me?
Go now. Go while you still can. Let's go.
If you're seeing this broadcast, you are in a part of the country no longer controlled by the government of the United States.
Boys, I love you both, but I want you to do what I would do. Kill this piece.
They mess with the wrong family.
How did this happen?
There's a new class of weapon. Everything went offline and never came back. They wipe us out, including U.S. Central Command.
What am I supposed to do?
I'm gonna fight. Anybody who wants to join is welcome to it. We'll hit them on our terms. We're the Wolverines, and we create chaos. We need to steal that weapon.
It'd be the foothold we need and take our homes
All right, that's
back.
enough. Now, the globalists are the ones shipping guns all over the U.S., not just Mexico, to create chaos. They're the rebels. The rebels, the globalists, they're the revolutionaries. We're the counter-revolutionaries. That's what they call us. That's why the whole architecture is against the American people. We're all that's left, folks, worldwide. We've been used to set up the world government. Now we're to be totally enslaved. And so they've all got, oh, the Marines are going to lead you. Oh, yes, they are. The Pentagon is run by the bankers, and they brag about it. The military is treated like absolute trash. All right, who's up first here? Is it Fernando? Is it Mark, Dan, Scott, Jim? Who's up first here? Let's go to the police. Mark in Washington. Let's move quickly. Thank you for calling in, Mark. So 1.4 billion rounds of 40 cal for the American people. What's that sound like to you?
Well, they're getting ready for something, definitely. I don't know if it's too much ammunition for training, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough to put 4 bullets in every American. I mean, it's a giant buildup for a sustained war, and that's what they admit they're doing.
Yeah, I'm concerned, Alex. I work in one of the wealthiest counties in eastern Washington, and I will tell you this, though, that I've been in law enforcement for 15 years, and I've called before. We don't do a lot of training with the federal government, so if they're planning on something in our area, we don't know about it. I will tell you this, though. I have seen a lot of military equipment running west towards Seattle in the last month. Seen a lot of trucks on flatbed trucks, a lot of Humvees. Last month I saw 9 strikers heading westbound from Oregon to Seattle area.
Yeah, they're caching them in all the... That's been confirmed. They're caching them in every U.S. city.
Yeah, I would just tell the American people is that police officers that have got, at least 15 years or more on, like myself, we are not going against the American people. I've already made the decision. If we're asked to take guns, I will be on the other side. The concern I have is the young military personnel and also the young police officers that are coming out of the academies now. They're more apt to take orders that are not lawful and legal.
But, I mean, these are orders coming from admitted criminals. I mean, at the top of the Justice Department, it's a bunch of gangsters. And it's just really sick to watch a bunch of New York and Chicago gangsters take our country over like this.
Yeah, it's frustrating, Alex, but I will tell you this, though. You've got men and women that they got families to feed, and a lot of them, to be honest with you, are asleep. I mean, they'll do what they're told. There's only a small percentage of us, I believe, at least in my area, because I talk to a lot of law enforcement officers that really know what's going on. And I want to thank you personally. You woke me up 2 years ago. And I'm even to the point now where I'm putting your stickers everywhere, and I'm getting tired of people in my area keep taking them down, but I'm going to keep putting them up.
Well, God bless you for providing leadership in your area. Look, I appreciate your call. If we don't get aggressive with this information, they're going to pull the trigger. They got a gun to our head. They're attacking us. We're doing everything we can to stop this civil war. Believe me, I don't want this. And once they pull the trigger, it's going to be bad, folks. I mean, these crooks are full of arrogance and bravado. Let's go to another call. Dan in PA, then we'll hold him over, and then Scott and others. Dan in PA, you're on the air, police officer. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex, you are awesome. I love your show and love all your documentaries, man. You're the best, so thank you. Yeah, a couple comments. The first thing is, I think the one thing the globalists aren't counting on is human ingenuity, the fact that we can adapt and survive, and the fact that there are so much more of us out there. And time again, humans adapt and we survive. And I don't think they're not giving us enough credit that we're going to survive.
I agree with you, but let me ask you this. My police and military sources, a lot of them senior, are saying something big late October, early November. That's what this gear up is for. I mean, what do you get 1.4 billion rounds of ammo against? I mean, what is that for?
Well, what they've done is because the standard round for the government was always the 115 grain 9mm. So what they've done is they've now standardized and upped their caliber because they all bought up the 9mm and they're now going to the 40. So they are clearly preparing for something. And a lot of us in some of these departments, we were not able to get a hold of ammo because everything was on back order because they were buying it all up.
Oh, so absolutely. Stay there. I'm going to come back to you. And then we're going to go to Sheriff Scott in Pennsylvania. We're going to go to Fernando. We're going to go to Jim and others straight ahead. But, I mean, the federal government is gearing up for all-out war with us. This is the big issue. We should be discussing this. Collapse is being engineered to usher in a one-world government. Where'd we get that? Herman von Rompuy, the head of the EU. And countless mainstream news articles saying how great it is. Go read our article, Bankers Say They've Conquered the U.S. and Europe, and you'll see the video clips, the links. And then police out there should go read the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL reports they're forced to sit through, the videos and things, and go, wait, well, they're saying this doesn't exist, but then the media is saying it does. That's how dumb they think you are, is they tell you that now the veterans and gun owners and libertarians and conservatives are the new Al-Qaeda, and in a new army plan, they're preparing for a Tea Party insurrection where we work with Al-Qaeda. But meanwhile, the Pentagon is running Al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria. Editorial, The War of 2016, Washington Times. Linked up at the Drudge Report all weekend with our article. U.S. Army Tactical Manual describes how to control domestic insurrection, gun confiscation, you name it. Going back to the police officer who's holding Dan in Pennsylvania. I mean, are people starting to wake up in your department? Is the public or is the armored pillboxes, the Secretary of the Army saying they want to put troops on the streets? I mean, is anybody discussing this, or are you the only person you know that's awake?
No, actually, it's a lot more than I think people realize, and because of the sensitivity of this, people aren't communicating it openly. We're doing it very quietly with one another. My town that I work in, there's a lot of "Don't Tread on Me" flags floating around. There's a lot of military veterans, a lot of police officers, and you can't be afraid to talk to each other. And I think people were very afraid to approach me, and when I would talk to them, after a couple minutes of speaking with people, they realize kind of you're on the same page.
Well, I mean, listen, Dan, think about where we're at. We're actually sitting here talking about a Red Dawn internal takeover. I mean, we're actually to the point now. I mean, this is so horrible. And I know why people don't want to believe it, because it's so crazy. But history is crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's exactly like Thomas Jefferson said, every generation needs to, have a revolution, and I think kind of what you're talking about is it's not only economically and physically, it's also spiritually. We've just lost our way as a country and as a people, and people are slowly kind of waking up to it. But, what people need to do is they got to lobby Congress and things like that and get that Oklahoma law passed and the law in Virginia, and when you guys reported in New Hampshire about the jury nullification law. That's what they need to do.
I think you just said it, and I want to give people some positive news. They've always had the incremental takeover. They're putting the hammer down worldwide. Brzezinski even says this in his new book, because they know humanity's waking up. This accelerated takeover is the fact that they're desperate to get us under their control because they know we're waking up.
Yeah, and, people need to start saying no. And people by nature are really non-confrontational, and they need to just start saying no. And just nip it in the bud and just stop it in its tracks, because
exactly
like what you say, you give them an inch and they take a foot. So thank you so much for everything that you do, man.
No, don't thank me, brother. God bless you. I just have studied history so much, and this is so real. This is so real. These globalists could do anything. I mean, I've got a stack of mainstream news today where they admit Al-Qaeda is funded by NATO. And Hillary Clinton shipping them into Syria to kill the Christians and Jews. I mean, I can't even believe it's gotten this bizarre. We're going to go to break and come right back with Scott, who's a sheriff. We've got Marines, Army folks, you name it, other police. Welcome to call in, 800-686-2237. That's the Midas Resources number. I can't even keep track of numbers anymore. 800-259-9231 is the call-in number. By the way, if you want to support the broadcast and get yourself prepared like I'm doing, I promote what I believe in. ProPure, the best gravity-fed filters for your house, restaurant, in the field. We've got them all discounted. Promo code WATER, InfoWarsShop.com. And in the face of this, we're just expanding in the face of the globalist, InfoWarsShop.com. Get the ProPure water filters there. All right, we've got Jim in Indiana, an on-duty police officer. We're going to him right now. Then we're going to go to Scott, Fernando, Jim, and others. We're talking about Homeland Security, another 750 million rounds, 250 last year, 450 million this year, and now another 750 million. That's 1.4 billion in the last year. 1.4 billion 40 cal. I mean, that is like more than an army buys for, you know, a giant war. It's an arms buildup against the American people by the crooked banksters that have taken over and who've got all these freaks working for them at the Department of Justice, who are so freaky I can't even. I mean, it's just they're nuts. They're loons. Let's go to Jim in Indiana, who's on duty. So what's your take about the open announcements of re-education camps, gun confiscation drills by the Army, all the documents, it's even in mainstream news, the Army preparing for war with the Tea Party, saying they believe the Tea Party is going to link up with Al-Qaeda. What's your take on that?
Well, it's an absolute outrage. I mean, I agree with everything you say about it.
Well, it's Alice in Wonderland, too. Do any police you know, are they buying this? Or are they concerned?
Well, you know, it's like the guy in Washington said, you know, most of the younger guys aren't getting it, and they're probably going to go along with this nonsense. But guys that have been around for a while are starting to figure it out. But for the most part, if you talk to people and they think you're nuts, you know, when you bring up stuff like this. But more and more guys are waking up, especially the older guys.
Well, I mean, what are hundreds of mobile checkpoint pillboxes for? What are 1.4 billion rounds of 40 cal for?
Well, here's a question for you. Why did my department issue me a federal ID card?
Well, there you go.
Card that says on the back of it, it's got an RFID chip with my picture on the front of it. And on the back of it, it's got the USC code warning that if we tamper, destroy, whatever, we're liable for federal criminal penalties. It's nonsense. I won't even carry it.
Well, that's because, I mean, you know, it's the threat fusion centers. They're spraying for West Nile virus because there's been 2 cases in Dallas. It's nothing. It's like the flu. They're spraying the city with it, and I'm watching the news, and I see them turn around and they say Homeland Security. I mean, they're over everything. I had a call last week about it. I looked it up. Homeland Security is involved in CPS cases and cases of swap meets selling copyright violating T-shirts. I mean, they've got TSA, sir, all over the country now, just showing up, running checkpoints that are illegal for you to run, and you're a sworn bonded peace officer, and they're just goons.
Have any part of it? Are you familiar with Muscatatuck Urban Training Center in southern Indiana?
Yes.
The last 3 weeks they've been running drills, and they talk about natural disasters, this, that, and the other, but their biggest drill last week was an atomic explosion in the United States.
Yeah, well, I look into these guys' minds because I've followed them so long, and it's really uncanny because I know what's in their cards. I don't know what they're going to play next, but they've really hyped the nuke. Can you imagine the power grab they're going to have if they set off a nuke and claim the Tea Party did it?
No, but down there at this place, the federal government's put in millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I know somebody that was down there last week that was in EMS, and she was telling me about the atomic explosion. She said you couldn't believe it. They had cars up in trees and all kinds of nonsense. I mean, it was. But yet, this is supposedly for natural disasters and whatnot training. But well,
that's always the cover. Yeah, go ahead.
They got a website. If you look at their website, they talk about this 3-week training thing, and they've had like 9,000 military shipped in from all over the country just to train that with police, EMS, and fire.
Yeah, well, they use the threat of that to merge the military and regular army, and they're federalizing the police. But again, the federal government itself has been taken over by foreign banks, and the foreign banks brag about that. Good to hear from you. Appreciate you calling in. We're going to go now to Scott, Fernando, Jim, and others. Back in 3 minutes. I'm Alex Jones of prisonplanet.tv and Infowars.com. We're streaming video at prisonplanet.tv. All over the United States, police are being issued, as we just heard an active on-duty police officer talk about, but it's in the news, these federal ID cards. And if you haven't gotten them, you will soon. They've got CIA involved locally, illegally. They are putting regular Army and Marines all over the streets. The Secretary of the Army is calling for it. And the Chicago Tribune and others are reporting that the 5 U.S. megabanks, of course, there's a 6th European consortium, have been ordered to prepare to prevent collapse. But really, it's prepare for collapse when you actually read what's going on there. Again, Army training manuals saying re-education camps, war with the Tea Party. They're projecting civil unrest led by the Tea Party, linking up with Al-Qaeda out of Mexico. That's like saying Jesus Christ knelt to the devil out in the desert and accepted. I mean, it's the opposite. I mean, who believes that the Tea Party is going to work with Al-Qaeda? How long did I tell you that would be what they'd say? I know these people, okay? I mean, it's not hard to look at Big Sis to know what she's like. And then it all comes out. I mean, these are crazy people. And they want to start a civil war. I mean, they're nuts. Obama's top economic advisor was John Corzine, the former governor of New Jersey. And he made 40-to-1 bets with other people's bank accounts that his company controlled on the stock market. I mean, these criminals do crazy stuff. And I've studied history, and now it's not even studying history. I'm going to your calls. They admit that they're gearing up for war with us and training. And it's in the movies, it's everywhere, where the gun-owning, conservative, libertarian Christian is the enemy. They've got an ABC News show coming out called Founding Fathers, where Texas gun owners are criminal scum who abuse their children. It's always the same MO. And people sit there watching this, believing that if you're a Christian gun owner, you're planning to nerve gas New York. I mean, it's in all these shows. It's all, and then people sit there and watch this. The lowest crime rate out there is white women, then Asian women, then white males. But they say on the news the white male's the most dangerous because they're just going to flip it from Al-Qaeda, that they get all the white males to get behind giving up their liberties to fight, when Al-Qaeda is run by the globalists. This was always the plan, and now it's public. Okay, who's up next here? We've got Sheriff Scott, then Fernando, then Jim, and then Steve in Montana. We're going to go to all of you. But if you just joined us, 1.4 billion rounds of ammo. Paul Watson's article deals with 450 million rounds of 40 cal and 750 million rounds. That's not all of it. We've got links to the PDF of the purchase order. It's 1 million of this, 1 million of that. I mean, it is just... And some say they're doing this to buy up the ammo, because you can't get most of these ammos they list now at basically any price. So they are going, maybe that's how they're keeping us from getting bullets. Because we're buying 2, 3, 4 million guns a month. And don't forget look, I'm not for violence, but it is a counterbalance. That's why we have the Second Amendment. Is if the government did get taken over, as it has now, and they try to carry out these type of crimes, you got to defend yourself. Let's go to Scott, who's a sheriff listening in Pennsylvania. Scott, what is your take on the armored pillboxes, the checkpoints, the regular army on the streets, the talk of everything collapsing? Why during a collapse would you need 1.4 billion rounds of ammo? I mean, that's enough to kill everybody 4 times.
Alex, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I've got a question for you. Your sources are saying there's going to be a collapse in October?
Yeah, your phone's breaking up bad. No, I'm not saying everything's going to collapse in October. Our police and military sources and everything we see, the globalists create jump points where they're looking at something in a frame. They may unlock the trigger and go with it, or they may lock it back up. But late October, early November is when a lot of our sources are being told, get ready for something incredible. But the globalists were saying it was something big would happen after the Olympics. I said, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it was later confirmed that the security firm was saying get ready for something big. But they do that to get everybody to line up and do what they're told.
Okay, yeah, because, you fear-mongered the whole Olympics ordeal, and, nothing happened, and now it seems like you're fearing up the whole October ordeal and trying to jump over what you've said in, the past weeks about the Olympics.
Yeah, what you're doing is engaging in a straw man situation. But go ahead and say whatever you want about me, and then I'm going to respond. Okay, put him on hold for a minute because his phone's bad, and I'll go back to him in a second because I wanted to be able to respond. I was saying, go ahead, sir. I hope to heaven I've been fear-mongering, and this doesn't happen, okay? I am absolutely blown away by what you just said, and I'm tired of this meme, this talking point. I had a guest on who's a TV producer. He later released his name, who had already been in local TV and newspapers who did go get a job with the big security firm and who said that there's no real security and they're telling him there will be an attack. I got him on and I said, just because they're telling you that doesn't mean this is the case. A few weeks after we broke all this, we didn't really break it, we had him on, but broke it internationally, it had already been in the news there. They came out and they said, yeah, it's true, horrible security shambles, people can bring anything through. So that's what happened there. You know, I told you in 2007 that, because I had former top CIA analyst Ray McGovern on, that they were planning to stage a Gulf of Tonkin with ships attacking our own ships. It came out in New Yorker magazine. Two-time Pulitzer Prize winner Cy Hirsch confirmed. Cheney at that time wanted Navy SEALs to attack our own ships. They said no. Admiral Fox Fallon basically had to resign because he refused the orders. We've had several heads of CENTCOM, several chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff come out and behind the scenes stop the Iran war. 888, we almost had nuclear war with the Russians, that whole Georgia thing. Sir, I told you years ago they would put TSA on the streets. I saw them say it on C-SPAN. I broke all this down. I said that, of course, the leadership of Penn State was involved in a pedophile ring. It's now in the Daily Mail and other newspapers. Okay? I have had the police officers on and others who were there and saw the feds bomb Oklahoma City. So I understand it's scary for you to hear this type of info. 1.4 billion rounds of 40 cal have been purchased in the last year. That dwarfs anything ever imagined. I can read to you the news articles where regular Marines are running checkpoints from Tennessee to California. I've had the state reps on and read the governor's statement where the military tells them we're going to do what we want. And then, I mean, no one can deny. I told people 15 years ago, the NSA's got hubs at all the telecommunications facilities listening to everything you're doing illegally. That's now admitted now. You know, I met with a fella from a telecommunications company, an engineer, 15 years ago, is how I knew about that. And he said, I can't tell you what's classified, but I'm in order to do this. Here's what's open source. Look at the Telecommunications Act. I told you they'd be breaking in over cell phones with government alerts. It's all coming true. I wish it wasn't. Okay? If I do anything, and I apologize for this, I subconsciously hold back how bad this is. I mean, I told you the globalists run al-Qaeda, and I have a stack of news here. Asia Times, al-Qaeda flags fly over rebel-held Syria. That's today. More visible U.S. role expected in Syria in coming weeks. CNS News. You know, U.S. gets ready for, this is Israeli news. Quotes U.S. sources close to president saying he will join an Israeli attack. Israel test SMS missile. Alerts as Iran chatter grows. Syria video shows rebels throwing bodies off roof. Yeah, they're just executing. It just goes on and on. And people are like, oh, Alex, don't fearmonger about war and all this. Did he hang up? Why did he do that? I mean, you know, it's funny he brought up the Olympics. What am I supposed to do when we have whistleblowers saying this is what they're being told? I mean, are you going to call in if we don't have something in October or November happen? And say, oh, Alex, you made this up, nothing happened? I mean, what am I supposed to do? I've had countless police and others where they're having urban warfare drills in places like St. Louis, where they got tanks rolling around, say, yeah, we were told, you know, martial law in late October, early November. That's what I'm seeing all over. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But there's all these mainstream news articles and Army manuals saying re-education camps for us, and the government's armed to the teeth against us. And if we don't take this as a threat, they're going to get away with it. Don't you get that? God, you make me angry. Excuse me. Fernando, who's Army. Fernando, what's your take on all this? Thanks for holding.
Yeah, there's a good article in Veterans Today by Gordon Duff. Have you had him on the show?
I think years ago. I think so.
He goes into, it was over the weekend, the Israelization of the United States police force.
And what's it break down?
Slowly, every police department in the United States, at the behest of Department of Homeland Security, is being trained by Israeli groups. As part of this training, there is an increased move to use military uniforms, armored vehicles, heavy weapons, etc.
Oh, yeah, no, I saw that first in the New York Times years ago. Yeah, Israeli groups are out of Israel are training them basically how to shut down cities and turn everything in like it is in Palestine. Very creepy. And, yeah, it's Israel's used as a client to come in and like be the experts. But our taxpayer money pays to give M16s to all the Israeli citizens that want them, which I'm all for guns, but why is my gun bad then? I appreciate your call. Yeah, no, I'm fully aware of that. The ADL is basically a Mossad front, and they're teaching that basically America's bad and all this. It's just terrible. All right, we'll be right back with Jim, Mark, and others. Stay with us. When I covered the Olympics a few times, and sources saying that they were being told there'd be this big attack sometime after it, I said I thought that was to acclimate people, to a police state, and that I didn't think there'd probably be an attack. But then that guy calls up and says, you said this was going to happen, it didn't happen. Look at what's happening overall. Look at the loss of liberty. Look at what's happening to the economy. Look at what the bureaucracies are doing. We're becoming an unfree country. The world is losing freedom. And world government is being announced. And censorship is increasing. Let's go back to the phone calls here. Let's go to Jim with info from active duty Marines. Go ahead, Jim. Tell us what's going on. Then we'll go to Mark, Steve, and others.
Hey, Alex. First of all, I wanted to say the previous caller, don't let that discourage you.
No, it doesn't. I just don't get these weak minds. Clearly, there's public Army manuals admitting re-education camps for us.
I see it. I have a friend that's a current military police, and he's pretty much in the dark about all this. I've turned him onto your program, onto your website. I've shared my login information, so you can go check it out. And he basically he's in shock. I mean, he doesn't see what's going on. I mean, nobody's telling him. So apparently, this is very compartmentalized. He's only about an E2 or an E3, I think. So, I think if this is going on, it's going on at the higher levels, definitely,
Well, yeah, just like Fast and Furious. But, we've got the articles with links. A lot of this is on the Army's own website. This is the re-education camps, the gun confiscation, the teaching the Army that the enemy is the Tea Party, and that they're going to have to take over the states. That's all there. It's just, I guess, the average people don't go read, the overall force structure. They just take orders. But, that's how the globalists get away with all this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think for the most part, most of you guys are young. They're out there. I wore a Marine Corps uniform. It was a source of pride, and you follow orders. That's what you're taught. There's a lot of us waking up. Realizing that there's something wrong. There's something that's just not right about our country anymore, and he's definitely waking up. He's waking people up. I asked him questions. Do you see any of this going on? He like I said, he himself, he doesn't see any of this. They're telling him he's going to ship to Afghanistan in 2030.
Well, sure, they're all. But they're training regular Army and Marines for riot control and stuff. That's not hidden. The Secretary of the Army, again, a month and a half ago in the CFR, said they want to put troops in every major city. So this is all really public. That's what's so weird for somebody like myself that sits there and studies it. It's all pretty much in the open. God bless you. Appreciate the call. That caller before last gets to me because the guy sounded like a nice person. And I guess he just wasn't sophisticated enough to understand that I didn't say the Olympics were going to get blown up. In fact, I said I thought it was hype, but we looked at it. Unbelievable. Let's go to Steve in Montana. Go ahead, Steve. You're on the air. What's your info?
We're pulling over here on the side of the road. I got a friend of mine, Bob, here with me, too, that got the information firsthand. I'll let him tell you what it was.
Yeah, General Paul Valley used to be on Fox News. He's telling friends and relatives to stock up on the beans and the bullets up here in Kalispell, Montana.
So again, sure, I'm hearing some of your people that are inside the system are saying, get ready.
Absolutely. But he's been saying this for about a year now. Paul's been saying this, and I can't give my source, but anyway, the other thing is we got our National Guard up here in Montana, in Kalispell, is being trained by a cadre of National Guardsmen out of Helena, Montana, in riot control. I talked to two different guardsmen and where I work, and the one kid was from Libby, Montana, and the other guy was from Kalispell, and he said they're getting training on civil unrest, as far as riot control.
Yeah, that's the game plan, and we're getting closer to the controlled collapse where you'll be begging for the military on the streets. But the point is, the globalists engineered it to then take our liberties. It'd be one thing if people were burning a city and got dealt with militarily, but you could just let the citizens be called in by the police. They could deal with it. If you'd let the citizens just be armed. The cities that'll burn will be New York and Chicago, where they've disarmed the people. But Obama has come out and said Chicago is the model of the country. Really? I feel sorry for people out there who are naive. I've been on air 17 years, and I have covered countless military drills, operations. I have confronted FBI agents at Waco. I'm not bragging about what I've done. I've run into quite a bit. That's how the good Lord set things up. And I've not seen 1/10 the persecution of the lady we're about to talk to, where the people like Joe Bannister have gone through, who was a Treasury agent. He was able to beat their false charges. Sherry was not. But for those that haven't had people in the federal government call up and death threat their family and let them know they were just listening to your phone call, heard you just talking to your mama, now I'm going to cut your head off. For those that haven't experienced 4 guys beating you up in a parking lot, telling you to shut up or next time you're dead, you just don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to tell you right now, okay? You've got criminals at the top that are trying to manipulate good people throughout the system to do bad. That's why they tried to sell us that torture is good and secret arrest is good and cruise missiles are tough and armed drones are good. And, there's this threat, Al-Qaeda. Oh, but now it's not Al-Qaeda. It's gun-owning conservatives, libertarians, constitutionalists. It's a takeover, and they brag they did it. It's a banking takeover. Now they want physically control. They want a national security state over everything. All over the U.S., they got public school kids trained to spy on their parents. That's in the news. They're forcibly inoculating little kids all over the country without parental consent. We're already living under incredible tyranny. They're doing forced Gardasil shots, killing people all over Mexico right now. The Gardasil shots here killed a bunch of people. Rick Perry lied and said it was the law to take it. We're already living under crazy land. They're already grabbing little kids and putting them on chemotherapy and killing them. Just 2 weeks ago, Harvard came out with a decade-long study. I said over a dozen. It was more than 20 major in-depth studies that they collated and said, yes, sodium fluoride is brain damaging the public. The IQ has been reduced everywhere it's used, and bone cancer's up 7-fold, and it's deadly poison. But if I go down to the city council, and I've done it, the mayor will laugh and walk off when we bring in scientists and top doctors, university heads, fly them in from all over the world to present this, and the mayor gets up and laughs, okay? And that's this attitude. People have been so comfortable with evil for so long that you can't even recognize it anymore. Let me tell you what you will recognize, though, those of you that serve this system. You're going to recognize when you get that early diagnosis of cancer, or your kid does, or your wife or husband. You're going to get religion when the IRS comes and takes your house when you know you paid all the taxes that are unconstitutional to begin with. Now, I wish you don't have to go through this pain that a lot of people have had to go through to wake up. But this thing's coming to a head. I want to take a few calls, and we're going to have Sherry Peel Jackson for the balance of the transmission today. We've got Joe Bannister in studio, former Treasury agent, who found out the IRS collects money for the private Federal Reserve, as Ronald Reagan's own commission showed. They arrested him twice and tried to put him in prison for it, but juries found him not guilty. That did not happen with Sherry Peel Jackson, who's got a new book coming out dealing with all of this. She was an IRS agent. We're going to be breaking down all this fraud where they're ordered to give out fake ID numbers, tax IDs, which then can be tied to Social Security numbers of real citizens, and then the citizens don't get their refund checks. The citizens get their bank accounts grabbed, and the IRS goes ahead with it. I've got the whistleblowers. You've seen the national news. I told you about it before it broke. I'm just so overworked I couldn't collate it all together and couldn't get them in here. Been talking to one of them 3 years. There's a total collapse at the main IRS center nationwide here in Austin because they now know they work for a private Federal Reserve. They now know the money doesn't go to run the country. They now know that 70+% of the new money they're getting is from retirees, where they've changed the rules and are taking their money. We're going to get to her in a moment. And we're going to talk about all the fraud and context of this, not just her case, but as a former fraud investigator, what she saw. Because the same thing she went through is now happening. But they can't jail all of them. But let me tell you, when these whistleblowers try to expose what's happening, they put them in prison. They put them in prison. My dad, in the 80s, lived in a middle-class area, had the 2 nice cars. The IRS came and said, we've retroactively changed the rules. We want all this money, penalties, and interest. He said, but I've got all my receipts. I paid the taxes. And they said, Mr. Jones, we're criminals. Pay us or we're going to put you in prison. Well, if you're not a criminal, they put you in prison. And we're going to be talking to her in a moment, but I'm also going to hit some other news here. But let's real quick take 2 calls. Mark in Texas, former police officer, current correctional officer. What's your intel on 1.4 billion rounds of 40 cal now purchased in the last year, 750 mil ordered last week by DHS, top story at Infowars.com. What's your take on this massive military buildup against the American people?
Well, Alex, you're a national treasure, by the way. My intake on it is, one, they're gearing up. Okay, these shootings that are happening the other day, like the so-called Batman shooting and the shooting at the Sikh temple, just goes to show you that they're setting things up. And by the way, I've connected the dots. I called a few weeks earlier after the I think it was last week, actually, about the 6 shootings, and I said that I know about the right-wing websites. I go to both extreme right and extreme left-wing websites. I know my history. The Sikhs are not considered, first of all, a neo-Nazi would know that the Sikhs are not Muslims, and they also identify with the Indian people as a whole, because Himmler used to carry a copy of the Bhagavad with him during the Nazi days. So, I mean, it's obvious that this was just a government setup. They figured people are stupid enough or ignorant enough not to understand this. And both of these guys have actually military mind control connections. And as far as the ammunition goes today, it's my opinion that they're gearing up. They're also trying to take a lot of this ammunition off the market, so we can't get it, because they know they can't really come down on the Second Amendment. So they're trying to dry up the ammunition pool.
You're right, but they could do anything. They could release a bioweapon, you name it. Everything is gearing up towards a design collapse, so we're so diverted by the collapse, they don't go to jail for Fast and Furious and the rest of it. Good to hear from you. Real fast, Jay in Indiana, you're on the air. You've got info on ammo deliveries. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jay. I hear you got the radio on the background. Put him on hold. We'll go back to him later. We're going to open the phones up later for Sherry, and he can give us his take then if he's still there. Let me hit a few other news items that are up at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Dozens of underwater drones deployed to the waters off Iran. Humans aren't going to be involved in the future because globalists want pre-programmed machines that will follow their orders. That's MIT's own statements. Again, Jerry Sandusky shared boys he molested with other high-profile pedophiles linked to Penn State as part of sex ring, Daily Mail. Of course he did. 100%. Raping kids and broad daylight in the middle of the field house? Of course. It's all the, you know, I told you Paterno knew. I told you they all knew. And notice a bunch of them are going to work for Homeland Security now. That's a pedophile organization at the top. That's why they've got it all compartmentalized. Imagine what they do behind national security. You name it. You can think of it or more, they're doing it. Scottish government plans Gardasil vaccinations during new school term. Doesn't matter how many kids they kill. That's a Don Salazar, Infowars.com report. Europe must further centralize fiscal power, claims Fed boss Bernanke. Again, major banks told to prepare for collapse, and that during a collapse, they have to prepare to be able to stay afloat, provide their own police, you name it, security, that the federal government isn't going to help them. They're telling them, get ready for every man for himself. Record gun permits by Goldman Sachs employees in New York, which you got to just jump through total hoops to get, but they're able to get them as the mafia. 2 earthquakes, again, have hit Iran, injuring 5,000, killing 300. Continuing here, total surveillance police state NYPD reveals new massive 40 million supercomputer spy system. Continuing here, UK may soon vote to leave the EU despite massive pressure. That's a New American up at Infowars.com. Megabanks plan for collapse with contingency plans with private police force. Again, I already mentioned that, but there's that report by Suzanne Pozell up at Infowars.com with all the links. Daryl Issa to sue Eric Holder today over Fast and Furious. That's just some of the news that we've got here, some other TSA news. Also, CNN suspends journalist Fareed Zakaria for plagiarism. You know, it's so easy in your article to just quote somebody and give them credit. But the point here is that he came out and said ban guns a few weeks ago. Their ratings are plunging. He has the lowest ratings of all. They just want to get rid of him. They're all a bunch of plagiarists over there. All they do is regurgitate the same baloney over and over again. Continuing here, we are now going to, for the balance of the transmission, look at the IRS scandal. And we're going to look at it from within the organization. Again, Joe Bannister heard a radio show back in, 1997 in California. The next 2 years, he researched it. He was an armed Treasury agent, you know, the type they send out with the IRS to raid your house. And he heard that the IRS collected money for the private Federal Reserve. He heard none of it went to run the country. He heard it was all a fraud, that the elites didn't pay the tax, which is now admitted. And he said, I respect this talk show host. I'm going to go disprove this and then demand to be on the show, basically. I was the first person to go interview him. I went out and interviewed him in California. First person for video. It was, I think at first it was at Media Bypass, or, you know, Media Bypass. Did the first interview. And the point is, and that's in one of my documentaries, and then they twice tried to put him in jail. So he said, you know, I need a response to this. And they just said, nah, just give us your resignation, just for asking. Now, Sherry Peel Jackson was part of the national ads that were put together by what, We the People in USA Today. And she was a fraud investigator. She spoke out. They arrested her. And they found a jury to put her in jail. Just absolutely disgusting. She's a former certified public accountant and fraud examiner with 28 years experience in public, private, and governmental accounting. Ms. Jackson conducts basic and advanced financial education seminars and classes across the U.S. She was instructed financial survival classes for various organizations, including private companies, youth groups, and nonprofit groups. She's also a Christian author and speaker. She was thrust in the national spotlight for taking a stand against government fraud and theft and landed in federal prison for 3 years. While behind bars, Ms. Jackson experienced God like never before. She's such a nice lady. Interviewed her before she was sent to prison. She used her time in prison to form a spiritually intimate relationship with the Lord, minister to other inmates, and write several books and journals. Ms. Jackson's first 4 books are currently being published and will be available for distribution in September 2012. They are coming out on time next month. She formed Wake the People International Ministry to bring a candid Christian worldview to social and political area and to provide a counterpoint to mainstream media. Ms. Jackson lives in Stone Mountain, Georgia, with her husband, Colin. She has 2 grown children. Ms. Jackson lectures on several topics: the deception of dismantling of the U.S. and other countries, the reality of modern-day slavery, the American prison system, the detention, the deterioration of the American backbone, the violation of citizens' rights, the silencing of the church, destruction of the family, the financial crisis, real or created, solutions to our current predicament. SherryPeelJackson.org is the website, SherryPeelJackson.org. And I pre-order a book that's coming out next month. And when I start getting tears in my eyes when I have somebody on like her, because they put her in prison for no reason for the truth. And these IRS agents that have come out and are now whistleblowing, they'll end up getting killed or something. I mean, that's how evil this system is, where they're handing out citizens' IDs so they can be set up and have their identity stolen for illegal aliens. I mean, the same government shipping guns to Mexico to blame the Second Amendment. They are so evil. Tell us about your journey, Sherry, at the IRS, when you woke up, what you did, and the fact that they tried to put basically everybody who was in those USA Today full-page ads in prison. Some were sent, some beat it. I mean, you're just modern-day heroes. I mean, you went to prison for 3 years because of your Christian faith not allowing you to be involved in evil. And if more people just stood up like you did, nobody'd have to go to prison. We'd turn this around. But it's people like you that we all stand on your shoulders. Sherry Peel Jackson, I salute your courage. Tell us in the next 3-4 minutes before we go to break about yourself, your journey, your awakening. We'll come back, talk about prison, and then we'll look at the latest IRS fraud from an expert fraud investigator. What's happening? Sherry Peel Jackson, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Alex, for having me on your show. I really appreciate you for everything that you've done. I actually did not learn about the fraud until after I left. I left the IRS in '95 because, as a Christian mother, I felt like I was putting too much time into what was going on outside of the household. So I came home to be Jim Cleaver. And at that point, I guess people felt freer to ask me questions. And the year 1999 and 2000, people were asking a lot of questions about, is this income tax real? And it got to the point where pastors were asking me. So I started trying to do research, found out about the USA Today, the first ad that We the People put out. And within that ad was a challenge, a $50,000 challenge for anybody to prove that Americans, people that work and live within the 50 states, are liable for the income tax. So, $50,000 to me, pretty good amount of money. And started doing research, and a couple of weeks later, I was stuck. I still had my codes and regulations and all these things in front of me, but I wasn't finding what I needed to win that $50,000. And the thing that really woke me up and snapped the light on was actually the Federal Reserve being not federal and them collecting $40 million an hour in interest from the American people. And I thought about, wait a minute, this is slavery. So I started digging more and ended up finding out about We the People and Joe Bannister, and everything went on from there.
And then they set you up and threw you in prison.
Yeah, well, I became more than a low-flying gnat at that point, especially the late, great Aaron Russo's movie, America, Freedom, and Fascism. When that came out, I guess that really set them off.
By the way, that was seen by about 50 million people conservatively. That was a big deal.
Great. I was hearing that people over in the Middle East, our soldiers over there, have been seeing the movie. As a matter of fact, when I was in the prison, I got letters from soldiers. They blessed my heart because they are becoming aware of what's really happening here in our country.
Did the jail guards know they had a completely innocent person in there?
Yeah, some of them actually did come up to me sometimes and pull me aside and say, I didn't know you were a celebrity. And, at the little jail houses that I was at and the prison, at least one person every time came up to me and said, I know who you are. So it was interesting. But again, they're locked in a job. They don't want to speak out because they are afraid. The fear in this country is breathtaking, Alex.
That's right, and we've got to get past the fear if we're going to get saved here. It's the fear that lets the evil take over.
That's true. That's true, and I don't know. People don't understand that. But we've gotten in a comfort zone that, unfortunately, is taking the country down.
And it is going down fast. Wow, Sherry Peel Jackson. But I remember later you were in some of the USA Today ads, correct? Because I remember seeing you.
I was, yes.
Yeah, I think they did a whole one just on you.
Yes.
Boy, they came and arrested you for that because the country's so free. Wow. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Peel Jackson is our guest. We're going to open the phones up coming up later in the next hour. If you want to get involved on air right now, the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. I know we have police and military holding, but we ran into our guests, so you guys can disconnect if you want and call back when we cover this topic again. I don't want to make you sit there and hold. Now we've shifted out into the IRS that we didn't get until 1913, doesn't run the country, doesn't fund things. It's all a fraud. That's why you hear Google and General Electric don't pay taxes, or they pay like 2-3%, some years nothing. They've all set it up where they're exempt. Okay, this doesn't run the country. All the other taxes do. It's a total fraud, just like all the other Ponzi schemes that are going on. We're going to go back to Sherry Pill Jackson here in a moment and go through the latest scandals, but also what she discovered the IRS really was, what the income tax was, how they set her up, put her in prison. We're going to have Joe Bannister pop in at the bottom of the next hour just to talk about Sherry's case, because they tried to put him in jail twice. He had to get jury trials to beat him. This is over their First Amendment. So pretty amazing, saying their First Amendment's criminal. They put Peter Schiff's father, Erwin Schiff, in prison. He's still in there for writing a book. I mean, listen, they don't like people talking about this because it is a fraud and it's provable. That's coming up. If you want to support the broadcast and get great products that I use and believe in, whether it's the ProPure gravity-fed filters that we have 10% off, already the lowest price out there, that's at InfoWarsShop.com, or the book Clouded Titles, or Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, all the books, the videos, the T-shirts, everything, InfoWarsShop.com, or link through at Infowars.com. Again, that's InfoWarsShop.com. We'll put that URL up on screen for folks. Sherry, this is a short segment. Just wanted to introduce you in this hour. A whole nother hour coming up. But briefly, and we'll talk about your case when we come back, what did you discover the income tax was from your own research as a former IRS fraud investigator?
I discovered that it doesn't apply to us. There's a lot of research out there. I think that they make it difficult. I think that they separate things in different books, and the easiest way to deceive people is to hide things in these books, these codes and regulations. So when you research them, the first thing that people do is they get bogged down and they give up. But people like Larkin Rose and Tommy Cryer and Joe Bannister and D.V. Kidd and others, they didn't give up. And when you get down to the bottom of it, it's just a gigantic monster with tentacles that is daily, regularly raping us. It's not something that we, as people that live here, should be paying. It's for non-resident aliens and foreign corporations for the privilege of working here. They are the ones that should pay the taxes. Imposts, excises, duties, and tariffs should be paid by other countries. Yet, through some special deals, these other countries are not paying. For instance, from what I understand, countries like China don't have to pay any excises and duties. At least
yeah, so it's really written as a tariff, but then it only applies on us when you're not supposed to apply tariffs to domestic groups. And it's just like the illegal aliens are above the law.
Right. So the whole thing is just a big fraud, and people are we're being demoralized. We have God-given rights, and our rights to live and be able to support ourselves and our families have been run over, because if you can tax a man 1%, you can tax him 100%, and he's a slave.
The power to tax is the power to destroy, and our tax policies are set by offshore banks that now brag they've captured the country. Always remember that. They now brag everywhere that we are captured slaves. Sherry Pill Jackson, sherrypilljackson.org. We'll be right back. Sherry Pill Jackson is our guest. She was a former IRS fraud investigator who went into private practice, saw the national challenges to prove that it was applied to American citizens, went and researched it, found out it didn't, and then ended up getting thrown in prison. Sherry, start getting into, well, first let's get into your research. When we come back from break, this is a short segment, long segment coming up. We'll get into your imprisonment and then take some phone calls. But, I mean, what was it like for you when you started investigating it and finding out that the conspiracy theorists were actually the people that were telling the truth?
You know, I didn't look at people as conspiracy theorists in the first place. My father always taught me to be very, very open. So when I started hearing it, I just kind of filed it in the back of my head as something that I should research, at some point. But when so many people started asking me questions about it, and I started seeing information, and yes, I did. One of the women at my church gave me one of Erwin Schiff's books, and I started reading it, and I said, this is making sense. And as I got into it, I saw, with the rabbit hole just started to go deeper and deeper. And I felt like the rug had been taken from under me, just pulled from under me, because we've been living a lie. All that time I was at the IRS thinking, oh, I'm doing this for the country, and these bad people aren't paying their taxes. And before I quit, I started seeing, the damage that the income tax was doing, breaking up families and closing down businesses for people who were just trying to make it and just didn't have the extra resources. So when I saw the research and found out that this was something that was not applicable to us, I started thinking about my own family. My children, they want a nice life, and the Federal Reserve isn't federal, and it's owned by the wealthy banking family, so their children's children never have to work a day in their life. But, my family's slaving away just to make ends meet and to get my children a college education, and that's wrong. And it didn't matter what color people were. It didn't matter what your religion is. It's just this fraud goes way up. They don't care who we are. They don't care what color we are. They just want to keep us down. And that's when I started speaking out. I don't want to be kept down. This is something that does not for anybody, but especially for somebody that has worked hard and always been an upstanding person.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head to interrupt. That's it. I instinctively get upset by people wanting me to not do good. I mean, these are bad people that admit they want to make us all poor so they can control us. These are bad people.
Right, and the control is not for them over us. We're supposed to be in control of ourselves with God at the head. So I had to make a decision whether I was going to be an informed slave or get off the plantation. And I decided that I was going to get off the plantation. I knew that it could come to them going after me. But it was more important for me to sleep at night. And it was more important for me to stop the rape, because if I didn't try to stop the rape, 15 years from now, they were going to be raping my daughter, and I didn't want that.
Exactly. The evil grows, and it doesn't people that live in fear never get it. They're so afraid. Once you stop being afraid and just say, I'm trusting in God, I'm doing the right thing, I'm standing up. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. God help me, I'm weak. But just that's when your life becomes empowered, even if you get persecuted. And I think you imply in your writings that being persecuted has made you even stronger, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. When we get, somebody said we're like tea bags, we really find out who we are when we get put in the hot water. And I've been in the hot water, but one of the things that resonated in my mind as I was reading back when I was studying, it was the Founding Fathers. I read something by Thomas Paine. He said, if there be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace. That's the way these Founding Fathers thought. And a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. And I said, well, if the Founding Fathers didn't do what they did, then you'd still be under King George, and I'd still
Stay there. Stay there. Come back and repeat that and expand on that. That's right.
Right.
And
this is something that I have to go to sleep at night, and I couldn't go to sleep knowing what I know and knowing that I was leaving my children this rolling snowball down the hill. I had to do something.
Stay there. I'm going to come back, get into what you were just saying, and then go to phone calls and everything. We'll be back. Last year, the Department of Education began SWAT teaming people that they said hadn't paid their college loans. Of course, statutorily, it's not illegal, and they didn't statutorily have the power to have a SWAT team, but who cares? Just do what you want. And we have 1.4 billion rounds, 250 million last year, 450 million this year, another 750 million rounds. This just came out this weekend, purchased by the Department of Homeland Security of 40 caliber and other calibers. This story up at Infowars.com. And I saw a report a while back where the IRS expanded its special response team with $1.2 billion of weapons and training so they can have more of them raiding us and attacking us and going after us. IRS forms SWAT team for tax dodger crackdown. And again, now you get a 4 a.m. raid because the collection agency for the private Federal Reserve says so. It's all about fear. We're not just going to take the wedding ring off your finger now. No due process. Now we're going to send men to kick down your door. And don't you try to be Amish or have a lemonade stand, or don't your kids draw on the chalk. We're going to arrest you. Don't draw on the sidewalk with chalk, you criminal. Sherry Peel Jackson, former political prisoner. She was a IRS criminal investigator. Got out of it to take care of her family. Saw national ads by We the People Foundation. This is 10 years ago now, 7, 8 years ago. Time flies. And started speaking out against it, so they came in, locked her up. And tell us how they set you up, put you in jail, because they tried that with Joe Bannister twice, who was an armed Treasury agent back when they used the Treasury Department, didn't have their own giant SWAT teams and armored vehicles. And think about it now. They just send the SWAT team to your house. I mean, it's just, wow, these are criminals. So hardcore. But Sherry Pill Jackson joins us. She's got a new book coming out. You can find out more at sherrypilljackson.org. So you wake up, you see the national challenge, you investigate it, you find out it's collecting money for the private Federal Reserve. Citizens are exempt. It's all a fraud. The ultra-rich all know this. They wrote the law with loopholes. It doesn't run the country. You find this out. You start speaking out. What happened to you?
Originally, nothing. So I started talking about it in 2000, 2001, and that's when we did the ads in the USA Today with We the People. But in 2004, at 7 o'clock in the morning, somebody was knocking wildly at the door. And when I went to the door, I had that little red laser on my head. And I have a little window on each side of my door, and there was this gun pointing at me through this window. And I had been downstairs in my office, so all I had on was a T-shirt. And I'm standing there thinking, okay, these people are screaming at me to open this door. Either I ignore them and they shoot me and my children run downstairs and see me laying in a pool of blood, or I open the door. At that point, my husband came down the stairs because he was upstairs. And I opened the door and they just rushed in. There were 15 to 20 of them. They were even in the backyard with metal detectors to see if I had some kind of something buried in the backyard. They went all through the house, and they stayed from 7 to 4:45 or so, and took 32 boxes and went away. At that point, a couple of attorneys told me that, they've taken this information and they're bound to indict you. It didn't happen until 2007, and they didn't indict me. They never did unseal the order because the attorneys tried to get the information. They wouldn't unseal it. So finally, the little sheet came out saying that, we're going to go in her house and we're going to find all these felonies. I think there were 4 or 5 felonies that they said to the judge that they were going to find. So the judge gave them permission to raid us. And they didn't find any felonies because the only thing I was doing is telling people what I learned. I didn't tell people what to do. I didn't tell people to pay a tax or not to pay a tax, or file a tax return or not.
And let's be specific. They tried to arrest a bunch of people, and I've seen them do these SWAT team raids when somebody films the police in Illinois, and they do the raid to show the jury, like, look, they're bad. We SWAT teamed them. So here they are with the lasers. These are childlike people that like to intimidate folks, trying to terrorize you. Now, did they have local SWAT team you, or was it a Department of Treasury or IRS SWAT team there to punish you, to try to scare you, or hopefully make you run so they can shoot you in the back?
That may be, but your savvy listeners are going to pick up on what I'm going to say first. I live in DeKalb County, Georgia. The first 2 people in the door, opening up my door, were 2 DeKalb County police officers. Can you say jurisdiction? Anyway, they opened the door, and then the other ones with the, I think they had IRS on their back, came in, and they just started running all over the house. I don't know what they had been told. They came in like I was some kind of a terrorist with thousands of guns. We don't even have a gun, and No,
it's part of the theater because they're so bad, they have to hyperventilate and run around like you're bad. I mean, it's all part of the bizarreness of this, but please continue.
I honestly think, when I looked into the eyes of some of those agents, that they were very surprised. Whatever they were told was very different from what they found. They found just a Christian family in a house, and they didn't find anything else, and they went away. So in 2007, I was never indicted because I was not brought up on any felony. Because
it was purely intimidation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They brought an information forth as opposed to an indictment. An information is what they bring forth when someone is being charged with a misdemeanor. So I was charged with misdemeanor, willful failure to file tax return. However, in order for that to be the case, I would have known that I was liable for the income tax. So since I knew that I wasn't liable, then I was never guilty. However, we have Americans that have been dumbed down to the point where either they have no clue about what's going on, They don't care, or they're in fear. I asked to ask the question. I was not, or my attorney was not able to ask this question, but the question that I wanted to pose to the jury was, would you acquit Miss Jackson? Would you find her not guilty? How many of you, I take that back, how many of you are too afraid to acquit her for fear that you'll be next? I know in my heart that everybody in that room would have raised their hand. And so the person that has to go to court basically is lost when they first get in the door.
And all because of fear. This is an empire of fear where foreign banks run us through a communist manifesto that says a graduated income tax. That's in the communist manifesto. That's in the planks. In fact, I forget which plank it is, guys. We pull up the 10 planks and I can read it to people. And it just all operates out of fear. I can't tell you how many people in the military, police, you name it, I talk to, they go, oh, we know what you're saying is right, but they'll come get us if we do anything. Look, I'm an example of being bold and God protecting me, but I've had some bad things happen. But, you know, every time I go through the fear, you know, God brings me to the next level. But even if I was killed tomorrow, I wouldn't be mad at God because I understand it's all part of the larger plan. But I just don't get how we became land of the coward, home of the slaves.
We got comfortable. We got very comfortable. We started watching that thing that I call the electronic income reducer, what you might call the television.
Yes.
And for our children, the electronic intellect reducer. We started paying attention to everything that is being said in the media, and we started losing our grip on reality. We started being group thinkers as opposed to individual thinkers, and those of us that think individually are the ones that are being persecuted and prosecuted. When there's a saying, I don't know who said it, so I'm not plagiarizing. When the government fears the people, there's liberty, but when the people fear the government, there's tyranny. And that's where we are. That's what I feel. I feel like we're there. The people fear the government.
And now, government, you notice yearly gets more crazy than the year before. Let's put it up on screen. It's the second plank of the Communist Manifesto, and it says a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. That's the 16th Amendment, 1913, Social Security Act, Joint House Resolution. So there you go. And that's how they do it. Go ahead, Sherry.
The point behind it is the solution is we have got to get the people to understand that whatever life they're living and whatever they're trying to protect is not worth what's going to happen if they don't step out and at least start paying attention to what's going on. Because, you know, a lot of people think that, well, I haven't done anything. I could never be put in prison. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. So that people, whatever they're fearful of, it doesn't matter because they're not protecting themselves. They don't understand that whatever they're doing is not protecting them. It's making them more vulnerable.
That's right. People think cowering helps them.
Yes.
And when a nation of sheep will be ruled by wolves.
Right. And that's where we're going.
And that's where we're going. And
one of the things I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to say about guns, I know you were talking about guns and the ammunition prior to me coming on, but from what I understand, the felon can't have a gun. And this is becoming prison nation, so we have over 1 million people that have a felony. So for every home that has a felon, there's not supposed to be a gun there?
Oh, there's a lot more than 1 million felons.
Okay. So that's a way of tearing down the Second Amendment by coming in the back door.
Well, no, that's right. You're absolutely right on that front.
People don't even see that. They say, hey, all these people, millions of homes don't have guns or are not supposed to because these people have felons. Well, if you don't have your protection, it's going to be easy for anybody to come and roll over you.
All right, Sherry Peel Jackson, we're going to go to break and come back and talk to Andy and Richard and a whole bunch of others that want to talk to you. And then Joe Bannister is going to pop in a little bit with you. But before you leave, I want to spend some time on just the fact that the IRS now gives people tax ID numbers. They know we're being attached to other Social Security numbers. They're being blocked from going after the illegal aliens and criminal groups, but using it, the person whose credit is clouded to grab their bank account and actually punish the citizen who's been set up for what the illegal did. I mean, so now the IRS is setting people up. And it's actually freaking out the workers, most of which are a bunch of well-meaning socialists that really think the IRS money goes to run the country. Phone calls right now. Joe Bannister is going to pop in the next segment. There's a story up at Infowars.com. It's a big deal. And, you know, they do this so much, they plan on wearing us out. But I need to tweet this out to everybody. Paul Watson did a story on it. YouTube threatens to terminate account over criticism of copyright policy. It's worse than that, and I'm going to explain it briefly at the start of the next segment. It's my voice. And a pattern has emerged now where they're flagging videos on my channel and others saying my voice, me talking, is copyright. And I did a video about it, and they banned that video and did a community strike and are trying to shut a channel with 230 million views down. I mean, it's just incredible. And again, they advertise as a commons. It's false advertising. So I don't know what to do. Because they can shut us down here, they'll shut us down everywhere. So I'm going to have to fight this. That's all I can say. And I know they're a big monolith. I mean, it's pure NSA. Let's talk to Andy in Hawaii. You're on the air with Sherry Peel Jackson, sent to prison for telling people the IRS was a fraud. We'll get her take on Irwin Schiff. Peter Schiff's father wrote his book, and a judge said, don't publish that book. And then he kept selling it, and they put him in jail. He's still in there. In fact, briefly, we'll go to Andy here in a minute and continue with calls. Joe's only popping in for about 5 minutes. But briefly, Sherry, what's your take on Irwin Schiff? How long is he going to be in prison?
Unfortunately, he may be in there for the rest of his life. Irwin Schiff has put together some great information, and his information is sound, and he definitely researched it. Irwin's very outspoken, and he upsets judges and other people. So they want to make an example of him as they made an example of me and some others. And Irwin's a good guy, and I just, you know, my heart goes out for him and the others that have been put in there for long periods of time.
And we're going to talk to a man coming up who they arrested twice and tried to put in jail, former Treasury agent, for speaking out. I mean, man, they do not want this information getting covered, do they, Sherry?
No, they don't. And the more they try to suppress it, the more it gets out, especially with Aaron Russo's movie. And Joe Bannister, great book that he put out, his trial was a little different, and his trial was one of the first of us agents. And what happened was they let the jury see his video. But by the time they got to me, they'd learned from their mistakes. So a lot of my evidence was suppressed.
Yeah, there's such a cult. They were showing videos of people talking and exposing it, and they thought, well, that's reasonable.
Right. That's what we talked to jurors after Joe. I actually flew out to Joe. Joe and I are very good friends. I flew out to his trial, and I was out in California for 2 weeks. And after the trial was over, we talked to the jury, and they were saying, this guy's, you know, what he's saying is reasonable, and he's a sound person. Even one of his coworkers was able to testify on his behalf concerning his character.
Well, now they're expanding a $1.2 billion snatch and grab squad at the IRS. It's just really creepy, folks. Okay, Andy, sorry, in Hawaii. Go ahead and make your point. Thanks for holding.
Hi, Alex. Longtime listener and Present Planet TV subscriber, first-time caller. So a big aloha from Hawaii to both of my true American heroes, you and Sherry.
Well, brother, we're not heroes. We're just trying to survive, but thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Sherry. First of all, I want to let you know you changed my life after seeing Freedom to Fascism. That movie and your testimony in there led me into my research to, you know, after years of, you know, doing my research, I came to find the same thing that you found, that there is no law. And your video, your parts in Freedom to Fascism did change my life. Second, I want to tell you my story briefly. After I did some research like you did, you know, I started signing up for the tax honesty movement, things like that. So just all the callers out there, this is so real that you got to be careful. They came at me with the club and pretty much claimed that I had owed them $40,000 when in fact I didn't. So short story, after about $10,000 in attorney's fees, they said, oh, sorry, Andy, you only owe us $3,900. So this is the typical stuff that I've learned from the IRS.
No. Listen. They knowingly give illegals under orders tax IDs, and then they let them use them in citizens' names, and then they come, that's the rest of the story, and take the citizen's bank account and refunds. I mean, it's not enough now. They're now using illegals to set up citizens. So this is a criminal organization that is now kicking all the useful idiots out and converting to pure mafia criminality. Because before they operated in ignorance, oh, we got to keep these tax cheaters in line. Oh, we'll break a few eggs. Oh, it'll keep the... Now they know it all goes to offshore banks. So all the old guards being thrown out, and just like TSA, they're bringing in actual criminals. Like a lot of the big head TSA people is turning out are pedophiles. And they hired the head of Penn State who helped cover up to now be in a special Homeland Security position. So secret they won't say. My word is it's over TSA rollout in all places, the streets of America. But that's in the Washington Post. So, I mean, that's who they are, brigades of pedophiles. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us. P.L. Jackson, cherrypilljackson.org is our guest. We'll also tell you about her book. Pre-order now, but it's going to come out next month. Definitely support her and support the First Amendment. Does it make her crazy that she discovered foreign banks took over in 1913 and have now expanded their control down to the local level? Does that make me crazy? Well, possibly. We're going to talk about some censorship issues here for a moment, but let me engage in a crass commercial for people watching at prisonplanet.tv and people watching on the radio as well, because I was back there getting one of these, as I usually do at about 1:30 Central. Instead of having a bunch of coffee, I have a Pollen Burst, and I have the new Pollen Burst Plus that I like so much. I'm on the cover packaging of it. It's full of all the key B vitamins and a bunch of others, and it's got a little bit of green tea extract in it, so it's got some of the base form of caffeine. But if I drink a bunch of coffee, I end up getting headaches to stay energized, do the nightly news, the rest of us, sometimes work 18 hours a day. Not with Pollen Burst Plus. This has less caffeine than a regular cup of coffee, but I usually have to take like one a day. Maybe if I'm working until midnight or doing Coast to Coast AM overnight, I'll take two. You know, one at 1:30 and then another one about 8 o'clock at night. But the point is, it's awesome. It's available, discounted. For $10, you can become a distributor and get wholesale pricing, or just buy it straight off the site at InfoWarsTeam.com or InfoWarsRx.com will also take you there. But this is the new Pollen Burst Plus that is now available, and it is raw, too. It's got the added currant berries from New Zealand. For me, it tastes like really cool fruit punch or something. We've got the classic Pollen Burst for sale as well. All of it discounted at InfoWarsTeam.com. And your purchase makes the broadcast and all we do possible. Literally, I'm starting to do this as the plug for it because I'm doing it every day. That is awesome. And I like my coffee in the morning. I'm not saying coffee's bad. Coffee's great. It's just this stuff has all these vitamins and minerals in it, and it's just supercharged. So InfoWarsTeam.com. Okay, let me shift gears before we go to Joe Bannister and the rest of your calls and political prisoner Sherry Peel Jackson. They learned from Joe Bannister's trial, and when the jury said not guilty for the First Amendment, and so they were able to get her and others, thanks to brainwashing and fear of the public. But there's an article up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com with video. YouTube threatens to terminate account over criticism of copyright. And this new thing is happening in the last 6 months or so where I have guests on and the videos get banned or restricted or have copyright claims put on them and ads placed over them and all sorts of stuff when I have a guest on air like Joe Rogan. And then Joe never said do that. It's happening with my voice now. And I know it's not even the companies that are doing this. People sample my voice for record companies. And then computers hear my voice and say everything that my voice is on is owned by the record company. So I'm not even blaming the record company or the artist or whatever. It's that they register to have their song protected in a system. And then my voice is in the song. So the original video my voice is in game is restricted. Now, I did a video. It was very polite, but I said, I've warned the people that are doing this claim two other times on air. I said, take the claim off of Endgame. Because we've seen when they put these claims on, sometimes suddenly it just takes it down. Well, they gave us a strike saying, YouTube says, I am a fraud. In fact, we can show you their notice. They said for misleading fraud and basically say, I do not own my voice. So this is how they can censor the web and censor everything. And it's a big deal. You know, most people are upset by this, but we see this happen, you know, now on a routine basis. If we ever just give into this, it's over. And then I hear the comments about, well, You know, YouTube's its own company. Really, it's called YouTube. It advertises as a commons. And then you go and follow all their rules, and then they keep banning the channel, knocking it down. I have to file. You have to file on their site, swearing in federal court. It's filed before federal court through their systems that you know, you own this, you own that, you didn't do this. You know, we show you a helicopter blowing up a tank that the military releases. It's on 100+ channels, you know, on the news. They ban our channel. They're doing everything they can to shut it down. Now, look, don't let that stop you. Become a prisonplanet.tv member. It's $5.95 a month, 6 memberships a month for $5.95 because you get one. It's really 6. That just pays for our bandwidth. And all of you, put it on Daily Motion, Vimeo, Blip TV, all of them. We need you to get everything from the nightly news and put it everywhere, including YouTube. So they shut down one of our big juggernaut channels with 230 million views. That's their issue. I mean, just the incredible research films, all the dedication, all of the work we've done on every subject, like Gardasil, killing people, all of it. They want to erase it because it just keeps going more and more viral, all the videos that are on there. So we also need people to go copy, you know, the really high quality, high production value stuff that's up there. Oh, here's another one. Multiple people shot near Texas A&M University. That's right up the street. Police took a man out of custody Monday after multiple people were shot near Texas A&M University. Several law enforcement officers were among the people shot. Rhonda Seaton of College Station Police Department told CNN she didn't have information on how people were shot or their conditions. Said the person identified as the gunman was in custody. The shooting happened about a block from campus. The university had warned people to stay away from the intersection. Okay, we'll keep. Well, I tell you, they got all the gun bills introduced, and just magically, it's all happening. And witnesses always see other shooters, and they're always in Army psyops. But there's nothing going on. Everything's fine. They just ordered 750 million more rounds. It's 1.4 billion now to fight us with. And this may be a lone nut, but the other 2 cases that happened the last month weren't. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. The point is, if we fall, if our free speech goes, it all goes. And sure, we're on XM 166. I see Andy waiting, you know, to go on air. Sure, we're on over 115 AM and FM stations. But that hits a certain audience, and it's big. YouTube could hit anybody in the world. It's not compartmentalized. And we're reaching, let's be conservative, just from what I've counted with all our channels and other ones, 7, 8, 9, 10 million a week on YouTube. I mean, the system does not like that I have an audience of 7 to 10 million people a week on there. I mean, I can just shoot a video on any topic, and it gets on average about 300,000 views in a couple weeks. I mean, the system does not like that, okay? They do not like it at all. I mean, we destroyed the Coney 2012 scam and even got credit for that in the news. I mean, we're dangerous to the system. And again, we're here because of your prayers, and we're here because, well, let me ask Joe Bannister that question. We'll go back to Sherry Peel Jackson, political prisoner. They tried to put you in prison multiple times for your free speech as a former armed Treasury agent who found out the IRS was a fraud and the income tax was a fraud. And you just started speaking out, so they arrested you. That was back in the late 90s, and then they arrested you a few years later because you were in, you know, national TV ads and radio and print. So they went after your speech. They SWAT teamed her later and put her in jail. Why do you think I'm still on air, Joe? I don't mean to spring that question on you. I wanted you to come on and talk about Sherry, but all this is coming to a head. They tried to put you in prison. They put her in prison. They put others in prison. Why am I still alive? Why am I not in prison?
Well, exposure is a double-edged sword, but I pursued it, as did Sherry and anybody that's doing the right thing. You definitely want to get exposure, and you've gotten it, and you deserve it. And you've helped other people to get exposure. I truly believe that people like you, Alex, have kept us at least safer than we would have been, if not entirely safe. So, you know, we all have our hats off to you for doing that.
No. I mean, I wasn't even asking. I mean, I know they don't want to kill me because it'll underline everything I said to turn me into a martyr. And I also know God's in control. But I still, from the death threats years ago and physically being attacked and IRS stuff, now it's like dead silence. I mean, they try to censor me and stuff, and White House control groups say they want me shut down. But, I mean, I think this shows they're not in complete control as well. I mean, I'm asking, why do you think I'm still around? Just the exposure?
Yeah, exposure. I mean, there's an Alex Jones room, I can guarantee you, or at least a room that handles people that are, very much in the public eye. And if they could find something to trip you up and discredit you, they probably would. But again, the exposure, I think you're just light years ahead of them. You and your crew are light years ahead of them because they are still bureaucrats. I heard Max Kaiser's talking on your show yesterday about how many weeks, the Europeans take vacation. So you're not going to expect any stuff to happen because they're all on the beach. Well, we do have that to deal with the government. They do like their long vacations and their big fat paychecks. And
yeah, that's what Steve Pachenik said. He said it's too much paperwork to kill you, for the elite, but also, I guess once you work for them, even if you wake up to do the right thing, they almost see you like as their property. Because I've seen when you've been a federal agent or even local police, whatever, you do the right thing, they really are scared of that because more people might follow that example. I think that's why they tried to put you in prison.
Yeah, they definitely want to set an example and scare away everyone else. And of course, with Sherry, they did that, but thankfully, Sherry's too strong for them, and I'm sure her Christian faith is what makes that happen. And God bless her, and I'm just so, I hope people will get out there and help Sherry. We're all out there fighting, the tax gladiators out here, but Sherry's taken the biggest hit for sure. And I just hope people will go to sherrypeeljackson.org and help the lady out. I mean, she's been putting her own time and her own money in this. And you know what lost earnings are over a 3 and 4 and 5 year period? She needs our help. And
she does. And I'm going to order the book myself today. I've got the advanced copy here, but I'm going to buy the beautiful hard copy there as well. In fact, Sherry, briefly, tell people about the new book that's coming out and what it deals with.
Actually, there are 4 of them. I was very busy in prison. I made sure that I set a standard. I didn't play around and play cards and watch television. I wrote. So
sure, you've got 3 that are Christian books, but then you've also got the IRS one, right?
Right. Questions people ask about prison life. There are a lot of people that have no clue what really goes on in prison. And I was in a prison camp, and I was also in an FCI, Federal Correctional Institute, where the murderers are. I was in both places. So I answered several questions. My friends and family got together, since they were asking me so many questions anyway. And I recorded them in a book. It's called Questions People Ask About Prison Life, Answers from a Former Political Prisoner. And my other book, Wrongly Convicted, is mostly my story, but I talk about some of the other women that were in prison. And I have a couple of other books that I wrote there. So all of those are coming out all at the same time. And there's a discount for all 4, actually.
All right, I want to go to some calls here. We're going to get you back on when they're officially out. But maybe we can carry them at Infowars.com. But the point here is all of the craziness is now coming out. The weird sexual stuff by the people at Homeland Security, the Fast and Furious, the IRS giving people fake tax IDs and ordered to keep doing it, and then blaming it on the citizens who they attach the IDs to. I mean, just inventing evil. And I'm told by my whistleblowers here in Austin, where this all broke last week, that everybody's really freaking out now, realizing, wow, we do collect money for offshore banks. It is all a fraud. And so I see a crisis of conscience. What do you make of all these new reports coming out, new depths of evil?
I think it's like a horror movie. To me, they're getting more bold and brazen, and I don't know how the people on the inside are reacting within the IRS. The people that I talked to within the prison system, their sympathy was with me, but they wanted to keep their job, so they kept their mouths closed. And I don't know, you probably know some insiders that are talking more, but I don't know how some of them can sleep at night. I just don't.
Well, they told me they're ordered now, retroactively, it's not even a law, it's rulings, to take 70+% of the money they're now being told to target is just middle-class and blue-collar retirees where they've got savings, and then they tell them, well, 5 years ago we really changed the rules, so penalties and interest, we want $1 million on $200,000 you pulled out of your 401k, and then they're taking their houses. And
the poor people don't have any money. The wealthy people have lots of loopholes, and they can hire high-powered attorneys. So who's left? Those of us that are in the middle class. We are the low-hanging fruit on the tree, and that's what they're going for. And those are the people that have the fewer resources. They don't have the money to go and get an attorney like Andy.
Or they're so trusting in the system, they think, well, okay, just take everything I got. Joe, I mean, what do you think of all this evil coming out in the open now?
I think it's a direct result, Alex, of hard work. Like people like Sherry. Sherry Jackson gets people's attention, and that's why she became a target. And she's not going to stop getting people's attention, and now probably hit the stratosphere. Having done the sacrifices that she's done. But I think what's happening is that reverberation, it gets through there. Like you said, the IRS says, don't listen to him, and then everyone listens. They used to say the same about Irwin Schiff when he was had the show in Las Vegas. The more that they try to put a lid on it, the worse it becomes. So I think it's, we're doing the right thing and we're doing a good thing, and we just may not see the results of it.
Sure. Take Sandusky and the fact that the whole echelon at the top of the school was involved as a bunch of pedophiles. Now it's coming out. I mean, and good people or average people can't even imagine this, but the people at the top are a bunch of demons.
They are, and unfortunately, the government gets way too much credit, in the jury box and everywhere in the voting booth. And the fact is, they don't deserve the kind of credit that they're being given. And people need to wake up. And Alex, you say this all the time. They think you're so stupid. Okay, that is so apropos to what the government really thinks of the American people. And I mean, do you want to be taken for a fool over and over again? I don't, and I'm hoping you won't either.
Well, they've tried to put you in prison, and then they learned from your case to put Sherry in prison and so many others. It's just, none of us are safe when innocent men and women can be thrown behind bars, folks, for their free speech, like Irwin Schiff. Peter Schiff's father wrote a book, and they said, quit selling it, or you're going to jail. And he said, I'm not. They said, all right, basically, the rest of your life in prison. I mean, this is what people are doing so you can have info. Let's talk to Richard in Texas, and then we'll go to Andy. Richard, you're on the air. Quick question for our guest.
Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I want to know how she feels about clawing back the clergy response, preachers, reverends, pastors, and getting them to help her in her quest to educate the public about the IRS and the Federal Reserve. I've been calling different shows trying to get them to not necessarily have a contest, but just having your audience, since it's international, call all the preachers, clergy, and literally claw them back like we're trying to claw back the TARP money. If we claw back some of those preachers, her job would be a lot easier. Mr. Jones, your job would be a lot easier, and all the rest of the GCN.
No, you're right. I mean, I saw a video some guy sent me saying, Romans 13, do whatever government says. Well, that's not even what the Bible says, and these churches will not talk about this because most of them aren't churches. They're 501c3 creatures of the IRS. Sherry?
That's right. Richard, that's a good question. And before my prison experience, I did try to get in touch with some pastors. There were very few of them that were willing to go beyond the regular information that they wanted to put out. I talked to one, and he said, I'm not going to walk that line. This information is true, but again, there's that 501c3. And the 501c3 has put the government over God. So has the incorporation. And Peter Kershaw has a wonderful book out called In Caesar's Grip. And it talks about how churches, unbeknownst to them in the beginning, have gotten incorporated, gotten the 501c3, and they're muffled.
Yeah, we're going to come right back. Stay there, Sherry and Joe. We're going to come right back and talk to Andy, David, Harry, and Richard. We'll at least get to those calls. Go ahead and go back to our guest, do a little bit of overdrive with them so I can get to everybody here. Let's go to Andy in Alabama, then David, Perry, Corey, Jim. You're on the air with Sherry Pill Jackson and Joe Bannister. Both been politically persecuted for working for the IRS and exposing the fact that it is a fraud. Let's go ahead. Andy, listening on XM 166. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Patriots. I'm a healthcare provider. I work for one of the nation's largest healthcare corporations. And like so many other millions of Americans that work for corporations, has payroll departments that automatically take taxes out of your check. There's so many of us that are aware of this and are willing to stand up. But, being subject to these corporate policies who, follow these, quote, regulations. I mean, I don't see any other way out of it.
Yeah, that's the big problem with mega corporations is they now say you have to take all these vaccines or you're fired. You have to take all these drug tests. These jobs are prisons. Sherry? Joe?
Well, I think Andy is actually talking about the withholding. And
yeah.
If you do work for a big corporation, Andy, there's nothing you can do. I have friends that also work for corporations, and they said, well, right now I can't go out on my own. Some people actually may quit, and if they have a skill, they can start their own business and redirect their resources to
Sure. Well, I knew you were talking about withholding. I'm just saying in general, that's why they want to shut down. Are you guys seeing the phenomenon of shutting down all the mom and pops everywhere?
Yes. Yes. And that's a shame because those are the people that we need to be supporting, not the corporations. Most of them aren't even in the country anymore.
Oh, they're all globalists, the big ones, yeah. Thank you, Andy. Great points. Joe, any comments on what he said?
Just a couple things I can think of. If you go to truthattack.org and the pre-induction physical, Tom Cryer, the deceased attorney, he gives people a good way to kind of look at their situation and whether they're going to butt up against the IRS or whether they're better off just paying the mafia to not break their legs and then supporting InfoWars, supporting Sherry Peel Jackson.
Yeah, that's what we do. You've got to, we should do a whole show on Mr. Cryer. He beat the IRS in court. Great guy, now gone on to heaven.
Yeah, so there is some things people can do. They can still help those that are on the front lines. We've already made our decision. Don't necessarily fall on the sword yourselves. Support the front lines with a donation now and then. I mean, you can still do a lot.
Absolutely support you guys who've been through everything. That's how we can back folks up. David in Oklahoma, quick question before we go to break. Go ahead. Come on, David. Okay, he's gone. Let's jam in Perry in Arizona. Quick question, Perry.
How are you today?
Good. Go ahead.
I am proud to say I have not paid individual federal or state income taxes, Social Security, Medicare since the late 80s. And I had 2 IRS agents visit me in 2007. And they were very nice, and we talked in my driveway, and I recorded it, and I answered every question with a question. I never gave them jurisdiction, and I haven't heard a word from them since.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to get SWAT teams now to just beat you up so you're scared and pay the private banks. But thank you so much for the call. I know a lot of people that are out of the system for years and just don't do anything anymore. They're done. I mean, the illegal aliens do that. Why shouldn't we? Any comments on that, Sherry?
It's ridiculous what they're doing. They're taking the money from us and giving it to them. That's what they're doing.
Well, the globalists hate this country. Anything they can do to destroy it, they do it. We're going to come right back and do 5 more minutes of Overdrive with our guest. We're going to talk to Jim, and we're going to talk to Corey and maybe a few others if we have time. Stay with us. We have Joe Bannister, former Treasury agent, who spoke out against the fact that it's all a fraud at the IRS, who they tried to put in prison, but jury found him not guilty. Sherry Peel Jackson was a former criminal investigator who spoke out and was part of films and full-page ads in USA Today. They SWAT-teamed her, kangaroo courted her, and sent her to prison for 3 years. She's got a new book coming out next month. And pre-order it at her site, sherrypeeljackson.org. These are amazing people because we stand on their shoulders, just like we stand on our forebearers' shoulders. And look, freedom is not given. It's taken. It's demanded. We've got to stop being such pushovers. Let's go to Jim in Minnesota. You're on the air with our guest. Go ahead.
Yes, we are being blackmailed. Okay, now I would like to ask a question. Are you aware that Social Security numbers are only to be applied for pursuant to order and notice? And that when we apply for them in the absence of order and notice, we've committed a fraud. We are impersonating government officers and employees. Social Security numbers are only mandated for U.S. government officers and employees.
Sure, what they do is they trick you into taking one, and then contractually you go into the banking system who's holding the money in these pensions but really has already spent it. But you get into all the legalese, they don't care. They're enforcing it all at the point of machine guns. Comments from our guest.
Yeah, Jim, I have 2 children, and when I gave birth, the hospital sent slave surveillance numbers to my house. So I sent them back, and until I went to prison, my children did not have slave surveillance numbers. Unfortunately, when I was gone, they got driver's licenses and other things.
And again, they said under law, the card used to say it till a few years ago, it says not to be used except for the program. The slave surveillance number is the whole control grid system.
I wrote them, and they said, well, no, you're right. It says it's not to be used for identification, but now so many corporations and banks require it, and we can't tell them that they can't make you give it to them to get services from them. So what the Social Security Administration is saying is, yeah, it's not supposed to be used, but if someone asks you for it, if you want the privilege that they're going to give you, then you have to give it.
And they make citizens jump through 100 hoops. The illegals are above the law. Joe Bannister comments on that.
Well, basically, with all due respect to his comments about the legalities of it, we have to look at the realities first. Is it
force majeure? Force majeure? I mean, they're just doing it.
Yeah, de facto versus de jure, and basically, the reality is try functioning without one. I'm not saying to not try to do that from that angle too, but again, it's about educating people and letting them understand that just because someone went to prison, I guess the entire Christian religion would have to disintegrate because Jesus went to prison, St. Paul went to prison. I mean, pretty much all of them went to prison.
But now they teach this doctrine of if you're a Christian and the government tells you to murder babies, do it. Just do whatever it says, Romans 13, out of context, when the whole Bible is about fighting that. Thank you for the call, Jim. One last caller. Corey in Texas, quick question.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Pleasure to be on the show. Real quick, I know we're running out of time, but Ms. Jackson, first of all, I just wanted to say that I'm truly sorry you had to go to jail for 3 years, prison for 3 years, and be away from your children for doing what's right. My question is, I'm all about bringing the fight, but how do we make a peaceful resistance against an organization like the IRS? If we don't pay our taxes, we go to jail.
Well, that's not true. More and more people are getting out of the system. You just keep exposing them. You keep exposing they're fraudulent. I mean, it's happening. You discredit the entire system. I appreciate your calls. Listen, I want to thank both of you for coming on the show. Joe Bannister is going to be in studio on Friday here in Austin, Texas with us, where we originate from. And SherryPeelJackson.org is where you can get her book. Thank you, Sherry, for all you've done, and God bless you.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
You bet.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Joe. See you Friday. All right, we're out of time for this transmission. Retransmission starts now, and then InfoWars Nightly News starts tonight. They are putting the screws down. They are trying to censor us. They're trying to keep us from reaching the public because the truth is powerful. So please support us and spread the word about InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. They haven't shut that down yet.